Welcome back, survivors. I'm SurvivalVis, and we return to Dinosystem. Now, I don't know if this will be the final episode or not, but I did want to almost give, like, a review episode in a way, sort of like I did way back when I think I first started into Dinosystem, like episode 9 or something of the series. It was just like a review of everything we've done so far, suggestions for what more to maybe work at bringing in, and just what we kind of thought, or what I thought in general of it. I shouldn't really say we. But now that I've been back to Dinosystem without, like, having everything fresh in mind and knowing how to exactly do everything, I do think there are some areas that could be improved on. Like, the biggest thing I'm feeling right now is that the systems are very deep, but the content kind of feels a bit shallow. Like, you have 100 skill for, like, 100 levels of skills for things like digging and fishing and stuff like that. Do you need 100, though? Like, we'll wait till we wake up again, we'll go into the skill page, and I'll kind of talk about that, what I mean. But do you need that far of depth into it, and is there enough outside of, like, with that associated skill to be worth it? Like, let's look here. You have athletics, and melee, endurance, and ranged, and toughness, and first aid. Now, some of these are passive, like the athletics, the endurance, and the toughness are more generally a passive that will just build up over time of sorts. But you have active things like the melee, the range, the first aid. But what all do you really do for those, and, like, how do you improve them? The melee is basically you just striking with a weapon or attacking, stuff like that. Ranged, unless you're really hunting or defending, you don't have a use for anything ranged. It's not even like you can try knocking down things out of trees with it, or even, like, fishing with them. As for first aid, that one is sort of like, you only as you get damaged, you can really put it to use, so I can understand that. But then you get down to things like digging, where, aside from making a path, burying a skeleton, which doesn't really do anything, or planting a tree, or trying to expand upon, it doesn't feel like there's that much to there, and I don't know if you need 100 levels of the skills either. I feel like there's a little bit too much has gone into all of the systems, like metabolism, body muscle, body fat, body weight, breath, speed, jump, fullness, calories, hydration. But the actual active part of the game as you're playing, it doesn't feel like there's enough content really there to keep you invested in towards getting these really high. It almost might be something where it'd be better to make these scaled from levels 1 to 10 and just have these larger gaps between level 1 to 2, and you feel they incrementally give you more. Like, the crafting is probably the biggest one, and we have that up to level 35 right now, and I'm pretty sure we can make everything here. The only problem is, some of the stuff doesn't have much use, and other stuff, you almost have the paradox of you want to hunt to make the stuff, but you're not supposed to really hunt. Like, prime example of that is like bow and arrows and quiver. Because the islands operate on a closed ecosystem, you don't want to overhunt, but the island conditions also mean that you sometimes can't hunt because you may accidentally, a single one could send the species too far off. So that's kind of where I feel like the game is in a paradox. It wants to be deep and invest and have you thinking a lot into the systems and everything, but on the same token, it doesn't feel like there's enough active beyond them to really warrant that much depth to them. I think for future development going forward, I probably suggest for Daniel, developer, maybe to look at how some other games have done that, and the one I'm really thinking of is The Long Dark. Look at how they kind of introduce systems into things. Like, when The Long Dark first started, I think they actually still have their legacy build system, where I think if you were to Google The Long Dark legacy versions or legacy builds, you could actually go in time and see how they developed the game. Like, when they first had you in the game, I don't think there was actually any crafting. it was basically you just try to survive for as long as you can, and if you did have, like, a weapon... Oh, actually, let me just pause this, since I'm going in a rant, or a ramble, depending on your view of it. If you used the rifle and shot a deer, you only collected meat from it. And you had a little box that said, how much meat do you want to collect for how long, and this will take this long, or if you have a tool, it'll take this. And then they expanded on that. Okay, if you can collect meat, well, you could also take the hide off it if you'd like, and that'll take you this much time, or with this tool, this less, and then the next one, here's gut that you can use almost like a versatile crafting material. So you have a system like that which slowly got put in place over time, compared to, like, trying to make this big, in-depth, like, chunk of system, then fleshing everything else around it in a way that Dinosystem sort of felt like it has. A big thing I'm kind of coming to again is, like, the water situation in Dinosystem. You've made it so you have wetness, and, like, the heat will evaporate and all kinds of stuff like that, but not so much about systems as in, like, how do you contain water? You can't... I'm pretty sure you can't make a water skin. Or can you? Yeah, no, there's nothing like a water skin, which actually would probably be very useful come the summer, because even the pond we made and dug out is gone now. It's like things like a water skin there, or berries, or, like, we do have mushrooms, which are a good step in towards a direction of expanding it, and I do like that. Certain mushrooms do certain things. But you could also even you could make mushrooms into, like, a paste, apply that to a spear, and you have a way of actually trying to hunt down an animal that does damage over time aside from bleed. Like, it's that kind of thinking where I feel like there's been a little too much focus on the number crunching systems in the backseat, and there's not that much forward in the front for it. Because I still have ideas like, hunting right now is such a paradox. On the one hand, you need food to survive. But on the other hand, because it is, again, closed ecosystem, you don't want to hunt that much. So there's some of the game that you're almost discouraged, that's the proper term for it, discouraged from engaging with because of the ramifications of if you do it. And that doesn't really make for... It's an interesting view to have, but it feels like that's a real blockade and barrier to really stepping into the game. It almost, maybe the next step might be different difficulty levels, such as like a entrance or casual mode where the island is less of a closed ecosystem, wherein like animals will randomly spawn again or respawn on the map. So hunting down a couple of ankylosaurs to make up your stuff isn't a big decision of, if I do that now, then maybe that's going to put the entire species at risk, sort of feeling. And then you step that up. Okay, that's your entry. If you want harder, now you have to limit yourself on how you're doing and what you're doing. And then just like keep ramping it up until you have this extreme for the difficulty you might be wanting. Another thing is also how you interact with the animals. Aside, like, there is a little taming system for the Troodons and the T-Rex. I haven't actually gotten to that in the game myself yet. I might wait for a little more content before we start going into that, but I feel like there should be a little more, like, involved with them. Like, you could dig something like a spike trap, so you could use a berry to lure an ankylosaur over and drop it in there, or say if you are having Troodon problems, you could dig some pits, and if you might be a little too advanced for how you might put it in. Like, jump over the pit, but instead just, like, run around, and because the Troodon is trying to get straightest route to you, lead it into a trap and get it really hurt that way. Or more things like that keep you interacting more with the environment that there's not really there yet. The way I see it is, you can always put in a foundation to something. You can put in the basics, like my prime example of what I've been thinking the game really needs is a small herbivore that gets you started into trying to hunt and getting you some materials to be better outfitted towards that next step. you can always introduce something small like that in, and then you can build out around it. Like, okay, these will actually make dens. So you could actually try to use the shovel to dig one out of a den, and that way. Or you could then make a trap to trap them if you get them out of a den, or just a trap in general. I feel like the system part of Dinosystem is taking a little too much over. I think it would work in something like its God mode, where, okay, let's say your objective or certain map objectives are to have dinosaur populations at these amounts, or see how big you can make an island before you have the population crash, and doing things like, say you have a little oasis of water. If you make too many mountains around it, the rainfall won't actually replenish that, so it'll eventually dry up. Or, on the other hand, if you make it too exposed, the sun and the wind will eventually take all the water away from there. It's things like that where, again, I feel like Dinosystem is a little too system-heavy and not enough engagement, activities to do, stuff to keep you playing in. Because I could say, like, go in and, okay, I want to try making crafting up to level 100, but how much stuff actually feels impactful or warranted? Or something like butchering, fishing. It's another thing too is that some things you'd expect to get more use out of materials, like tendons or bones. Like, almost maybe the game needs something like a tech tree. You start out with stone and wood, but then as you might be able to take down animals, you could have rare opportunities such as bone knives or bone spears that maybe they have more durability, or you can serrate the edges to make them better at hunting, or things, you know, just something that kind of feels like you progress more along instead of just kind of what it is right now. That's just kind of my feeling with it, is Dinosystem, it has done and tried to do a lot of stuff. The only problem is, for all of these systems and all that's in place, how much are you drawn to actually engage with in the game and to, like, experience and grow with it? Like, crafting, once you start off, you want to learn all these recipes and that and slowly develop and grow out. But then it becomes kind of like at a point, where exactly do you kind of go up from there? Like, if we were... Okay, well, I have to unpause for this, but... Like, you have the wood walls and the stone walls, which I think are good. But once you have some things like the spear, that's basically all you go to over and over again. Or, like, for pelts, all you really do is put on, like, a cape pelt, where, what about making, like, a... Okay, I'll check that in a moment, but what about making, like, a pelt tarp of sorts that might be more durable than thatch, or things like that? It just feels like a lot of the materials and things that you start in as a base can be expanded outwards a lot more. It's just how it wants to be done, I think, is the big thing, and that's something that's all up to Daniel. These are just suggestions that I'm feeling from what I've played of other survival games, and also taking a break from the learning curve of last time I've been playing Dinosystem to this time where I've had some time off and away and like a break. Things that I feel like could help improve it. The experience right now is, again, very system heavy, but not that much activity heavy. So I think that is the biggest direction to take things with the game going this point onwards. I know he wants to make this a really in-depth ecosystem experience, but I think that is something more to save for its God mode version than its survival. And I think it's a very important thing right now to figure out which one of these two to focus on. Because it's almost like fighting a two-front war. And your frontier is your survival mode. Your frontier is your God mode. As you're going to one, though, you're getting a lot further away from this other part, so you're dividing your force a lot, and if you do that, each side's only slowly gaining, whereas you could really push there, and then focus and try pushing there. Just, that's kind of my feel, is it at the point where there has to be more direction to which one we want to flesh and expand out more. So again, this was just a bit of a rant video. I apologize to you guys if you were expecting another video. The title might kind of lead it in. This is just like a recap of my feelings for Dinosystem right now. And if you do want the series ongoing, or to keep going from here, be sure to leave me a comment to let me know. It's, again, I'm trying to the activities are very narrow in what we're doing in the game. It, in some ways, hasn't felt like been that long since we've actually last played. But that is also, updates do take time, and they take effort. So, is I believe, a lone man person developing the game, which Dinosystem is already showing a lot of promise to it, and a lot of progress from its roots as well. I just think it's time to sort of pick what direction to keep the development updates going towards. The survival mode or the god mode, and try branching more into, before we look at making these big chunks and deep systems, let's take a little bit of like a peer review or peer analysis in a way, see how another survival game has implemented and expanded on its systems or made these systems introduced, and what can I take away and how can I work with that? That's the only advice I can really give in helps to what may be just expanding Dinosystem a little more. Good lord, I gotta keep that microphone moved back. I've been smacking it every recording session almost. So that's just my take there, and we will leave this episode here as just that little talk. So it's just my view of it. I do think Dinosystem is still a rather good survival game. It's just, it needs a little more activity in it. Whether it's something small like introducing trapping, or just more wildlife and animal variety on the island, or just something that makes you want to engage with it more than just having the systems behind it that are really in depth, but not really what you see and encounter right at the front. So, thank you guys very much for joining me on this little analysis video. If you do want to see the series keep going, leave me the comments directly asking for it, just because it's one of the ones, again, activity I'm kind of running into a lot of, we've already done this before, so I don't want to redo it and just kind of burn out the game or the series. So let me know in the comments, I will see how the reviews come in from that and go from there. But until I see you on the next episode, though, survivors, thank you very much for watching, and please remember to take care and stay alive.